Hi, my name is Stacey Johnson. I'm the Bereavement Director with Shepherd's Cove Hospice. So some tips on how individuals can provide self-care for themselves while just the nation at large is going through a crisis. It's simple things. I don't think that what I'm going to say is going to feel like it is tips that's coming from an expert, so to speak, but more of reminders. But they're very important reminders. Things like drinking lots of water, keeping ourselves hydrated, trying to make sure that we're getting enough rest. If you're like myself, on the days that I've worked from home, I feel more sluggish because I'm not as active. So in addition to getting rest, we need to balance that out with also being active and getting up and stretching, maybe walking around our house, making sure that we kind of get a little bit of sunshine in. Coping with loss and life transition. And what I mean by life transition is exactly what we are all going through as a nation. We are all losing the independence to be able to get in our car and just go wherever we want to go, when we want to go, to see whomever we wish to see. It's okay to have fear and uncertainty during this time. Fear is a very natural emotion. It's not bad to feel fear at all. I think that where the misconception comes into play on the feelings of fear or guilt, some of those that are perceived more as negative emotions are based off of the behaviors that are sometimes associated with fears and guilt. But just feeling the sensation of fear is very natural, particularly in a pandemic or in some sort of other crisis setting. So irregardless as to what the life circumstances is, it has brought an individual, it's okay to be fearful. I think it's important, however, to be able to understand what are realistic fears and what are irrational fears. Much like when we're talking to children and someone, a child might say that they're afraid, and so as an adult we try to assess or evaluate, is the fear a rational fear or an irrational fear? There are healthy fears. We don't want to step out in the road in front of cars. Right now we do need to take the precautions that the CDC is reinforcing to everyone, to wear masks when we're out in public, good hand washing, cough etiquette. So those are healthy fears that we need to be responsive to and responsible for. But I think that taking that to extreme levels is not necessarily healthy fears. And so we need to be able, again, to connect with people so that we can have someone mirror before us if the fears and the anxieties that we're feeling are healthy or are they in fact irrational. Also, disconnect. We can't be so serious all the time. We can't watch the news 24/7. And so we have to give ourselves a mental break. We have to, on purpose, step away, whether it's reading a book, whether it's listening to music or watching something funny. It's important to not get so consumed in the topics that are at hand, because loss and life transition has a way of consuming an individual's mind, where an individual will just labor over his or her thoughts continuously. So it's important to break away. A positive way to cope is to remind ourselves that we're not alone, but rather that we're all in this together. Grief in any type of loss has a natural way of making us feel feelings of isolation, like we're the only person in the world who's going through those particular feelings. And there is some truth to that. We are the only individuals who are grieving the specific loss the way that we're grieving it, but there is some camaraderie that we can also have when we're experiencing loss and life transition, like what we're going through as a nation. Maintaining connections during life and loss is really important, and one of the ways to ensure that we're doing that is to communicate our own needs. For example, if you have a loved one that's in assisted living or in the nursing home, rather than sitting back and waiting on the staff from the nursing home or the assisted living facility to take the initiative to remember, oh, we need to offer this, take the initiative to communicate. I would really like to be able to speak with my grandfather or my grandmother. People can't read minds. And so what is important for me is not necessarily important for another individual. So important comes in all different sizes and shapes. And so I think that just because those who are working in healthcare settings are super busy, and that's just an understatement. They should not be required to think of all of those things. So I think it's important for family members to take the initiative to also check on their loved ones. If you have a smartphone, being able to FaceTime your loved one, it does help. I think coping during a national pandemic and coping at end of life offers a sense of uncertainty. For the families that we serve through hospice, they question what tomorrow might bring or whether or not tomorrow will even come. And so I think that that is something that is in common just when we talk about being able to cope through that. Like most individuals, when I'm visiting with a bereaved client or serving a terminally ill patient, we can't necessarily make promises that we can't keep. And so I wish that there were, was more reassurance that could be provided to a patient or family. But what I choose to tell myself, and I know many professionals that I consult with and network with, is during this time we're really trying to be present. We're trying to be present where our feet are. We're trying to live in the moments in which we've been gifted at that very moment. And I think that's the beauty of hospice in itself, is because when we can't add days to life, we work to add life to days. And so I would encourage those all across the world who are coping just like myself, not only with the pandemic, but maybe going through, personal life transitions on top of it, or even loss, is to try to be present where you are. Focus on the now, plan things out. It's a time where we're all losing control. We don't have control over what we can't see. And so that in itself stirs anxiety. But when we can schedule things, when we can plan ahead, also planning in to be flexible, because we know that every single day for most of us, there's been a new piece of information, or there's been something else that we've had to that's caused us to have to shift to the right or to the left in our job functions. So when I say plan or try to regain a sense of control, I say that very loosely, but it does allow us a little bit of comfort. Children benefit from schedules and routines. So for all the children that have found themselves not in the classroom but now at home, being able to schedule in family time, being able to schedule in rest, being able to schedule in a little bit of exercise, and then some sit down time where they can take care of themselves. I would encourage both children and adults to connect to those things that they naturally find themselves connecting to, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's nature, prayer, meditation, and the list could go on and on and on. Spending time with your pets and your animals, being intentional about nurturing someone or something. For me, that's been important, especially when I've not been able to connect with my extended family. Just being able to come home and be playful with my dog Ace. That's helped me feel like I was able to extend a little bit of nurturing to someone else and have more purpose than just sitting on the sofa. So we have been fortunate at the Brook Center, which is Shepherd's Cove Hospice's community grief support center, to be able to serve children and adults who have experienced the death of a loved one. We served 391 children just this past school year, and we've been mourning ourselves, the staff has, because we know that abruptly came to an end. And so some of the things that we've been doing to ensure that we're still able to reach out and support not only the clients that we have served, but those who present, loss at present and need a support system, is we are offering phone support. So we are available Monday through Thursday for phone support, as well as teleconference and FaceTime calls. You've probably heard on the news that a lot of healthcare entities have had their regulations loosened so that the client's needs could better be met, and we are no different than that. So we are trying to be creative We are trying to be patient. Shepherd's Cove Hospice has been fortunate to be able to be a grantee of the Alabama Department of Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention. And with that, we have been able to acquire a library of resources to help both children and adults cope with loss. And so anyone that would be interested in obtaining resources by Shepherd's Cove can contact Shepherd's Cove at 256-891-7724. We really want to work to help equip adults who are supporting a grieving child. We want to get resources into the hands of the adults, so particularly now, while services are somewhat limited in that children are not coming into the grief center, we want to equip the adult to be able to support the child in the home setting. And so right now we can mail the literature out, or we've had several individuals who have called us in advance and just said, hey, can I come by and can I pick up some resources? And then they've been specific about what their need was, whether it was for a child or an adult, and we've slipped those items out in the mailbox and people have come by and picked those up. So we're happy to serve our community. The community has been so good to Shepherd's Cove, and it's a way that we can give back and support our community while we're all going through this together.